Knockback, the retro and nostalgia podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Knockback, Last Stand Media's nostalgia, retro, etc., whatever the hell this is now podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by my brother Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, good to see you today. How are you, my friend?
Hello. It's good to see coming at you from an undisclosed location.
Yeah. You're at your safe house, your CIA safe house?
Safe house is not too safe.
Yeah.
Do I look uncomfortable? I'm super light. I don't know how to, I'm not used to this. I'm on a couch, which I thought would be comfortable, but it's not.
No, it's not.
I got the other, you guys can't see, but I got the other couch configured perpendicular so I could have my mic is actually shoved into the corner of it's like a sleeper couch. So the mic stand is shoved down into the couch in between the arm and the cushion. It looks more official than it's actually coming off pretty clean. But if you saw the disaster area around here, I won't show you.
That's a classic set. Everything's all fucked up off camera.
As long as it looks good to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at your beach house.
Yeah, I wish it was my beach house.
Well, like your family's beach house.
Helen
like
and Charlie's beach house. That's slowly becoming our beach house.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is not at all the intent. Hanging out with Snooki. What was the other guy's name? The Situation? Was
The Situation, yeah. Snooki in The Situation.
I think when people think about the Jersey Shore, let me be clear about this. And no offense to Shaolin, but there's the northern Jersey Shore, which is like Staten Island. And there's the southern, south of Atlantic City, Jersey Shore, which is Philly. I'm in that Jersey Shore, right? No offense to Staten Island, but Snooki and The Situation could have north of Atlantic City. We got down here, my friend. Main line. I wish. Yeah. Represent.
Cool, man. That's good. It's cool that you guys get down there.
I love it. I absolutely love it. What are you doing? What's going on with you, my friend?
Well, nothing. First of all, we're recording in June. I was preparing this beforehand, so the calendar has elapsed. Let's see. Where does he go?
Oh, you could have fit one more over the. All right. Yeah, I could see him.
There he is.
There he. Would you put like double-sided tape on the back?
Yeah, I just put like scotch tape on it.
Yeah, you just doubled it, like rolled it up.
Yeah, you can't really see it too well from the camera angle, actually. That's all right. There's going to be many more of them, so there's too many of them. I mean, because we're at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll have 7 more on there by the end of the year.
7 more. So. I feel like you could have fit that one more on top. I mean, I don't mean to micromanage, but
no, you definitely can. But I'm going to get there. You know, like I don't want to fill I feel like I've already filled so many of the good slots. You know.
Okay. All right.
So I didn't want to get too ahead of myself. That's from a calendar from Japan that Micah acquired for me, I think.
Is there is there a better icon? I know we talked about this when Toriyama passed, but is there a better video game icon than that damn thing? It's that
is like it's the iconic thing. I mean, that's what I tweeted out when he died. Because a lot of people were tweeting out, obviously great stuff, Dragon Ball and all that. And I was like, nope, boop. Because he drew it. He did.
I thought it was a little disrespectful. I thought it was a little too happy.
They do look happy. Slimes are so dumb. That's what I love about, especially in the later Dragon Quest games. There were only so many enemies you can encounter in the early ones, but in the when you play 9 or 11 and you encounter a party of 25 of them or something like that, it's so funny, and they're just all can't really do anything.
So cute.
And then I love how create the metal slime, the metal babble, how they run away. You have to beat the shit out of them before they run away because you get all the experience points. I love it.
Oh my God.
I love Dragon Quest.
Is that
Can't wait for Dragon Quest.
Original color swapping too? Like that's OG.
Oh, palette swap. Yeah.
Palette swap.
Yeah.
OG palette swap.
Well, I mean, Mario had palette swapping.
That's true.
Mario, the mushrooms, the clouds, right? Being bushes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was almost like a stamp, like a rubber stamp.
I would say the NES era really is the first console that was sophisticated enough to use plenty of color swapping, though, to just make room. And JRPGs obviously are huge for palette swaps because of enemies and all that.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, nothing else really going on. Our oldest nephew, Declan, graduated from high school. And so we're going to his party after this, and that'll be fun. Went to his graduation ceremony on Wednesday. That was fun too. Smart kids.
Oh,
So our nephew went to a school called Maggie Walker, which is a really difficult school to get into. It's a governor's school in Virginia that pulls from 8 different school districts, and it's a class of 200. So he's incredibly smart. And I was looking through, so there were, each person got their stuff read, and Adam Smith, and then he comes on. So I was like going through the book, and I was just waiting because his last name starts with a W. So I was like, okay, we're going to be here for a while. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to be here. I'm not going to leave like in the middle of when he gets read. But each to next to them was a school, and some of the schools these kids are going to, I was like, one of them's going to Oxford, one of them's going to the Dublin Divinity School.
Holy shit!
Like all these crazy ass places. Obviously, the Ivy League.
That's
and I was looking for Northeastern, and I wasn't finding it.
Okay.
Lots of Virginia Tech, like whatever.
Sure.
American University, Georgetown, all that kind of stuff. And then the second to last one is Northwestern.
Oh, you almost had it.
Because you know how your eye sees it. I'm like, oh, like, because I was gonna do like if anyone was, I would have done like the Uncle Mike, like
you kind of thing. Almost had it, dude. Yeah. Was there any in there that was like, Joe Blow's Tech's trade school for AC and HVAC or anything like that? Like that would have been refreshing.
There were some people that were blank.
Okay.
And then some people that it said gap year. Dangerous game you're playing.
I like it. Don't do it. Do it. I did it. Well, I'm not a great example, but do it because you're young. You travel. Take that year to travel. Don't go into 13th grade, especially those kids. They worked so hard. You know what I mean? It takes metal. It really does to go right from high school into college. You didn't do it. You went right into college, but then you had a lapse because you had to decide between a career and graduate school. That was right. And I
also like I should have been all right. So Northeastern's a 5-year school. I did it in 4 years, not because I'm smart, but because one of those years you're supposed to go an intern. They call it co-oping, and I just didn't do that.
Right.
Because that's like what Northeastern's famous for, because people that graduate from Northeastern get jobs like that because they usually work for these companies. And so that's a huge advantage. But I didn't need that because I wasn't in engineering or architect or anything like that. So I got out of there in 4 years, but I graduated in 2007. I should have been the class of 2006 because I did go immediately, but I just went like part-time while I was like working, and it was a complete waste of time. I really shouldn't have done that.
I understand that.
I was like, I want to ease into it and play video games. That's when I was like writing for IGN for the first time and all of that. And really, but I'm glad I didn't, because I would have met none of the people I met, because I would have met everyone the year before,
It worked out for you, I would say.
And I graduated. I was young. Like I started high school, or I started senior year when I was 16. I was 17 when I graduated, and I was 17 that first year I was gone. So I was actually everyone's age.
Yeah.
Because I was in that weird space where it's like, where do you begin or do you punt?
Right.
And mom's like, no, you're going. All right. Let's get into the topic.
All right, let's go.
The topic today is Ex Machina. The technically a 2014 movie, if an early release, but 2015 in the theaters. And Alex Garland's first, I guess, not his first movie, right? But it's first, like his own picture.
Yeah, his first. That's his directorial debut. He wrote the 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, Sunshine. He wrote a bunch of stuff before, and he was a novelist as well.
And Dread, right? The
Dread. That's another one. Sure.
The reboot of that or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking at it now. Annihilation. I don't think I ever saw. I didn't see Civil War yet.
You'll like Annihilation. You're gonna like that movie.
Yeah.
That's one that gets under your skin for sure.
Yeah, and so what's funny about this movie is I have seen this movie. I saw it when it came to VOD in 2015. I don't know why or how or with who or where, but I definitely saw it. I think it was at my apartment in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so I actually was familiar with this movie. And what was funny about it was how much I actually remembered about it. And what I think is funny about it too is how much more you get out of it when you know what happens. Because there's so many hints and like really cool shots. There's awesome shots of Kyoko, for instance, where she knows what he's saying, and maybe she's not allowed to speak, like, which is kind of the vibe I get or whatever. She's not programmed to do that or whatever. So there's like things that you don't really understand, like the camera angles and looking at her face and absorbing all of it, where you're like, oh, since I know where this goes, I actually understand this a little better. So it was cool to watch it again these many years later. And this was something you discovered more recently, I guess.
Yeah.
And
had never seen it.
And you got into it. So this was your idea to do this, and I was happy to do it. You were right. It is, for people out there, it is on HBO Max or Max. You had filled me in on that because I happen to have Max right now because I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, you're watching
I'm
the
on
last season.
10
sweet.
now.
Oh, you didn't get. I thought you were up to date.
No, I was through the first comeback season. So 2017.
Yeah.
That was 9, I want to say, or 10 maybe. 9, I think it was.
9, I think.
And then so I'm in the one now with like Mocha Larry or Latte Larry's or whatever, and like all that.
Season.
Like I'm doing that. I'm in that season now, and I've not seen this one. And the only thing I've seen, and I've said it many times to people around me because people had sent it to me, was that there's that one episode where the Jets fan kills himself, and they think that he killed himself because he's a Jets fan or whatever. And I did watch that one because people are like, you have to see this episode. But other than that, I'm not seeing any of it. I have no idea how it ends, and I'm really enjoying it. So anyway, I have it right now, and I'll probably watch The Gilded Age as well when I'm done with this. And dude, they announced a new Downton Abbey movie.
Did they?
And Paul Giamatti's coming back to reprise his role as the American brother.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love Downton Abbey. So.
Are you a Downton person? This.
Are you a Downton guy?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, okay. Good.
I absolutely love it.
Oh, me too, dude.
Oh, I know you're a serious fan, but yeah, Helene got me into it, and I was in. It's one of those things you can't describe why you love it so much. It's just like, why is this so good? I don't know, but it's wonderful. It's really wonderful, and it's one of those things kids could watch. Like kids,
it's not inappropriate.
No, it's really not. It doesn't have that sensational Game of Thrones thing. Like it's like really just pure, just sort of salt of the earth quality stuff. You know, it really is. It's no different than like, I don't know. It's got that very English Doctor Who quality where it's like it's a little offbeat, but it's almost sappy. It's so sweet, but it's just good. Just good.
Did you see the newest movie?
I saw. I think I'm completely up to date. I finally saw that last.
The one about the movie being filmed there and stuff like that. Yeah, that was a good one. That's the last I saw too. That was a really good one. When we went and saw, I was just making fun of it with Micah because we went and saw it with the girls like Dana and Allie and Mom in the theater. And I walked in and I was like really the only man. It was packed. It was like the opening weekend, and I was like the only man and maybe like one of the only people.
Are you serious?
Maybe one of the youngest people there.
You were probably the youngest.
And people were like looking at me, not bad, or were looking at me, and I went like, "Listen, motherfuckers, I've been watching this since longer than most of you." You know, I picked it up really in the second season, so I'm excited about that. And that's the reason I bring that up is because The Gilded Age is the same creator. And I was asking Mike, I'm like, I wonder if they will connect them in some way, not even literally, but like make some sort of reference because it's a little earlier. I think it's the 1890s in The Gilded Age, and Downton starts in 1912, and I think now they're in the mid 1920s in the story. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
World War I, right? Like ish.
After World War I. Yeah. Now we're like well after World War I. They start mentioning the Nazis. I mean,
right.
Edith's like newspaper owning boyfriend is killed by the brown shirts. She says
that's right. In the series,
and she said it's like she's like men with brown shirts. That's like the line. I'm like, that's so fucking cool.
It's so good. And doesn't Mary's husband go off to like form Aston? They don't say it, but it's like Aston Martin. They go off to form Aston Martin or whatever. Yeah, it's good shit, dude.
It's great. Oh, I can't wait. So yeah, that's coming back. They're doing a table read, so they're nowhere near ready. But okay, Ex Machina. What did you think of this? See, so the thing about this movie to me is it's short. It's not even 2 hours long, and it's very limited to. I love it. Just a few actors, and it's a very small cast cadre of people. And it actually, like a lot of good fiction, it's not even so much about what it's about, but about how you can glean something from it into the real world and what that looks like and how things go. It's very eerie in that way, and I think very timely. And what's funny about it is that it was conceived many years ago, but filmed in 2013, and obviously they did all the rotoscoping and stuff in 2014, and they released it in 2015, and it feels modern. We're in a period now of technological stasis, I guess, where things don't immediately look old anymore, but rather quite timely. Like the fictional Google style Blue Book company, the smartphones, the flat screen computers, the AI, the sophisticated technologies. None of that seems out of place today. It could be a movie that was made today, I guess, is what I'm saying. So it actually, I think, really benefits from it. And in fact, its subject matter is even more pressing and important than it's ever been, and will continue to get that way as we go forward. So yeah, I'm curious what you think of it. It seems like you've been quite smitten with this film from what we've been discussing behind the scenes. And so talk to me about it. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm late to the party. When something becomes such a huge pop culture phenomenon like this movie, and you just hear about it in the background constantly, people are referring to it. People are creating memes from it. The more time passes without you seeing it, the more you worry of how can this live up to the hype? You know what I mean? And I just kept letting year after year pass. And for some reason, having not seen it. And I think what put it back on my radar was Alex Garland specifically coming out with Civil War and all the clamor around that, which I really wish, I haven't seen it yet either. And I really wish I had, because I think it would add a little more texture to the conversation. I may sneak out and go see it tonight. I know it's playing at a little indie movie theater up here in Stone Harbor. Even if Helene's too tired, I may just go out and see it. Because I have a feeling it's like, that's a big screen worthy movie to see. Love Alex Garland. And then that coupled with having already loved Annihilation. And then I finally saw Alex Garland's Men, which I guess, when did that come out? In 2017, 2018?
It said Men is 2022 on his filmography.
Oh, it's that recently? Because I had missed that when it came out.
May 2022. Well. Yeah.
And for everybody that doesn't know, the A24 collection on Max, a lot of these movies will come, eventually will make their way. I think A24 and HBO, penned some sort of deal for distribution. So eventually many of the A24 movies will come onto Max. I'm waiting for Civil War. I think Iron Claw just made its way onto Max. There's a little bit of a delay, but if you could wait, that's a great way to see everything that comes out. And A24 does a great job. We've talked about them a bunch. But sat down and was kind of worried, like, oh man, I don't know, how good can this movie possibly be? Kind of went in with that attitude. Kind of hopeful, but a little pessimistic, right? And dude, I was totally blown away. It does deal with we're slightly cheating because we have that 10-year rule for Knockback. I know this wasn't released in the States until 2015, but we're almost there. Close enough.
Yeah, who cares? It's fine.
Close enough. And it is very timely. So this movie feels a decade ago, feels very ahead of its time. And I think, first of all, I have to tell everybody, don't watch this episode until you see the film, because this is a film you don't want spoiled. Somehow it wasn't for me. And I'm going to say, man, one of the best sci-fi / I would put it in the class of psychological horror films that I've definitely seen in a long time. As far as AI, I think it has to be mentioned in the same conversation as 2001. I think it's one of the great AI movies. Has a definite stance, definitely a lot of misdirection, but has a definite stance on AI, which I think is interesting. Great food for thought. And one of the great endings of the last 25 to 30 years. Easily. I was blown away by the ending. Very courageous ending. Very surprising and shocking ending. And the acting is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal in this movie. I couldn't believe how good it is. And Alex Garland just blows me away, man. He's one of those guys that's such a thoughtful filmmaker. I know he has a very difficult relationship with directing because he fancies himself a writer. And I think he may have said, I know they're working now on 28 Years Later, which is the third. And I think it's going to usher in a new zombie trilogy for the 28 Days Later franchise. But I think he's returning to writing and he's not directing post-Civil War. So, but what a talented director, dude. Like, the way his visual acumen for directing, besides just his writing and dealing with the actors and everything like that, he's such a talented director. Every frame in this movie is a masterclass. It's just so beautifully done. It's a beautifully told story, a lot of food for thought. Like all of his films, gets under your skin. It stays with you. It's haunting. And you want to go back, and you get more and more with each repeated viewing. I think I've seen it 3 or 4 times already now. And you get so much out of rewatching it. But the first time is special, because the first time, I think, is a real treat, because you're definitely in for some surprises. So definitely 100% watch this before you listen to Kyle and I converse about it. But dude, it's one of those things that you're so happy that it lived up to the hype. And it totally does. I mean, this is an important movie to watch, I think, besides being damn entertaining.
Yeah, it's great. It's suspenseful. It's disappointing when you know what happens. I mean, that's just the way it is with anything, though. It's okay. But yeah, it loses all of its suspense, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's something, there was something very satisfying about seeing it again and knowing that, so that you can watch other angles of it and not necessarily be surprised by the main line, but rather everything that's being built up around it. I love the way the movie begins with the everyone kind of looking at their phones and at their screens and everything at Blue Book, and which is this fictional search engine, this dominant search engine. I think they describe it at one point as having 94% of the internet's search traffic in that world, and creates obviously an infinite amount of wealth, basically. And that's what I was saying about how the movie still just feels very modern. Some things just aren't going to be changing anytime soon. And to me, I really enjoyed that aspect of it, because it's disappointing when movies about the future or about tech, things that still haven't happened in your own timeline, or we haven't yet experienced, or maybe things that are happening concurrent, but you're just not aware of, which is more what this is about in some sense. It sucks when it doesn't feel real the minute after it comes out. And I just think they did a really nice job. We're just in that space with smartphones and flat screen. Like, what are you going to do? Like, where is it going to go from here? It'll get crazier. But yeah, that really was something that stood out to me, was just how modern it felt. And I loved that it takes place in the middle of nowhere, because there's something, obviously they're hiding it, but there's something about the theme of it where you're dealing with the most primal of things, right? Like the nature of consciousness, and like where we come from and our ability to like interact with the world, and the futurism of all of that. And it's literally blended in with nature. I love how in the beginning you come into nature, or you come from nature, the helicopter drops you, you come in and see the house, and he walks in before he ever even meets Nathan, right? Caleb and Nathan.
Yep.
And you can see the house is literally built into the rock face. And and this is a real house, apparently, like an amazing house that is rented out for things, and people obviously live there. So fucking sick. And I feel like it's there's like I was gonna say allegory, not really. There's something about that. It's like, this is the fusion of everything. Even the house is fused, is this postmodern, a masterpiece built into the rock, right? You have you have all this technology, but you can't reach out with it. You're surrounded by mountains and no one knows you're here. You sign an NDA where no one can know what you ever see.
Right.
And ultimately, the ending is incredibly dark and actually somewhat unearned, and in and of itself about human nature. So in fact, this is an incredibly deep movie, especially considering its runtime. I think there's just a lot to love about it. What do you think about the setting in the middle of, because you don't have to set it where they said it. You could hide this stuff in this. I mean, not to like bring up Batman or something, but it's like Wayne in the Nolan movies has like all of that crazy shit in the Wayne Tower, like in like these floors that no one can visit or whatever, right? And that's where the Batmobile is, and all this kind of crazy technology is developed. You could imagine some stupid shit like that, especially considering Blue Book is this Google-like company with infinite resources, and this guy is a control, in control of the company, but kind of absent from it. So I like that they actually did say like, no, we're gonna bring it into a totally dissonant place like nature, and it's gonna be like the most high tech shit you ever saw. And I think that was intentional, and I like that. Did you derive anything from that yourself?
I kind of love that, man. I don't know if I quite caught that, maybe subconsciously, but like what you're saying about the blending of the organic and the technological. The man-made versus nature, and having the blending of both things. And the fact that they're playing up, like you say, that it's secluded, that this is some beautiful, picturesque place, but it's hours away from civilization and the woods with these giant waterfalls and mountainous glaciers or whatever. It's got like every sort of physical beauty, earthly beauty that you could imagine. And definitely that sort of, I don't know, that real life tech billionaire, spared no expense type thing. And also from the very beginning of this movie, I get the sense of like, it's so both relatable and unreal that you're constantly questioning, like, is this a nightmare or a dream? I don't know, but it's weird. It's off. Like, this place is like this beautiful, almost feels like a boutique hotel or Airbnb somewhere that you would stay. But is it beautiful or is it claustrophobic? I don't know. Is it both? I don't know. You're constantly on edge because you constantly don't know what to think. Constantly putting myself in Caleb's place. Like, would I like to be there? Or would I constantly just be looking over my shoulder, worried, anxious, worried for my safety, whatever? I don't know. But at the same time, you got this, fridges full of beer and anything you want to eat. And you're kind of in the lap of luxury, but what's going on? Is this Nathan guy good or bad? Is he a villain or is he a good guy? I don't know. You're really you're questioning from the jump, even from the opening, which you briefly mentioned, like that Sonoma, like Napa Valley, Silicon Valley, like campus where it's like the opulent fixings and all the trappings, the giant tropical fish tank, and everyone's in the expensive chairs in the lounge, teching out with their computers or their phones or whatever. And that's encouraged, that type of thing. It's like a real life Meta, or what you would imagine life is like at Google or Apple. Blue Book is like, just a fictional account of that. But that was the thing that I get from this movie until shit really hits the fan much later in the film, is like, I don't know whether this is a dream or a nightmare, but it's pretty unreal. Either way, it's pretty unreal. And maybe it's both. And where is this coming down on AI until the very end? You don't really know. And then when I hear Alex Garland talk about it, which I feel like I made a mistake, I'm fascinated with him. I think he's very smart. I think he's one of our great storytellers. But that fascination led me to listening to a lot of his interviews. And I wish I didn't, because he comes down on AI ultimately. I won't spoil it. I won't even talk about that here. But he comes down on AI very differently than what I think ultimately I feel like the movie says, which I thought was interesting. And it's one of those things where okay, you dug too deep. You didn't need to go that far, because I would have rather just left with my own sense of what I think it was saying. But listening to him at length, it's something else. But the comment on AI, I shouldn't go into fiction this way, whether it's a film or a TV series or a book, but I'm really looking to where the creators are standing. Like, what's their stance and what's their comment on AI is so important to me. I mean, do you know what's going on right now, Kyle, with Instagram, with artists just leaving by the hundreds and thousands?
No, is it because are they harvesting their stuff and feeding it to the AI?
I guess Meta came down with, via Facebook and Instagram, basically like it was either found out, or maybe they even announced, like, we're using AI we're using the stuff that you guys create, whether it's your photography, your actual art, your animation, your illustration, your paintings, and vis-a-vis those things that you're putting onto our sites, we're teaching AI via the stuff you create. So everybody's like, I'm not going to put my stuff up anymore. I'm going to pull it. And everybody's going over to, I was saying yesterday on Constellation, everybody seems to be moving over to Deviant Art right now, because they've come out against AI so far. But, ultimately, I don't know what platform all the artists will land on. But that AI thing is very much in the offing right now, especially with my thing, especially with the visual arts. So I'm constantly looking for that. Like, whatever creator, whatever writer, director that's doing something about AI, where do you stand on it? What are you saying about it? Because a lot of people like DreamWorks, Disney, they're coming out pro AI.
Of course they are, because they have to make money.
Right. It's the bottom line.
A place like DeviantArt, which comes and goes and comes and goes. It's so funny how that name just kind of hangs around, and people hate it and then they love it. And it's been like years and years of this.
It has.
They have nothing to lose by being staunchly anti-AI. The AI is not going to put their art on DeviantArt. So why would they have, it sucks, like these fiduciary obligations that these companies have towards the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's funny this comes up because someone wrote in a Sacred this week and asked, because we talk a lot about business, because I'm interested in it, like Sony's business and the other businesses of third parties. And we use the term fiduciary obligation a lot. And someone wrote in, and I appreciate it, because someone, a lot of people probably don't know, like, what do you mean by this? Like, what does that mean? And it's like, a CEO, for instance, has a fiduciary obligation to the shareholders above and beyond any of the employees. It's to the entity. If it means they have to lay you all off, now they might have like an ethical thing, they might have a problem with it, they might not do it. But their fiduciary obligation is to extract money.
Right.
For shareholders.
Yep.
In that situation. And so I think what's ironic are these great art houses like Disney that pioneered everything we know about moving visual art in the 20th and 21st centuries. They'll sell out to machines in 2 seconds because they don't care about art. You know, they stumbled upon it and now they're going to extract it. Did I tell you the anecdote though, Dag, about that I read recently about the artist that got hired on a big movie? Did you read this piece that has been going around?
No.
This like, so it's basically, I don't know where I read it. It was in some trade publication, but it was like this anecdote about how this guy got hired on this project, and it was to like, he's an artist, like I guess a union artist in some capacity in like film.
Okay.
And he gets hired onto this movie and realizes that all the other artists that they hired in quotes were AI artists, like people that can like prompt AI and do all of that.
Gotcha.
And he was assigned to kind of manage this. And he was saying how he had like this ethical problem with it, and he wasn't really crazy about it, but he needed the money. He didn't really know what to do. So he stayed around. And what he learned, and this is, I don't think this is going to be a long-term like fix, but what he learned is that like these people can't do shit. Like that AI art seems very tantalizing, but it's out of their control. And he was using the example of how like they know how to prompt the machines really well. They're not, a lot of them are not natively artists, so they can't even import something and split it into layers and fuck with things or whatever. And what he was saying was like the very act of like, you would give them a note like, this looks good, but we need to fix like this piece of it, and this thing's a little too big, and like remove this, and they literally cannot do it because they can't get the AI to produce the same picture. Right. And so it's just a little win, like a win for the little guy in some sense. That's interesting. And how he said that he walked away from the project more confident than ever that this isn't going to work. Like,
interesting. I got to read this.
Yeah, just a little, I'll find it for you. It's just a little bit of an anecdote about that. But what I think is interesting about this film is the AI that, and I don't know anything about what Alex Garland said about the film or where it came from, but I get the vibe that this idea percolated about a whole different thing that was broader about AI and humanity. But actually where we are with AI now, this is the difference between the things. The movie looks modern, it feels modern, it's about something modern. But it's kind of missing the little things that are actually what are scary about AI. Like we don't have to worry about robots yet. It's a sci-fi picture, it doesn't matter, it's not real. But robotics is nowhere near where AI is. Actually, Ray Kurzweil talked about this recently, that's what's stopping robotics from happening so quickly, is that like no one is really invested in it, like comparable to other things. So like we're nowhere near where we need to be to have a humanoid like that. But that it misses the forest for the trees of what we're really scared about AI about in this decade, let's say, which is the replacement of little tasks. So in other words, it's like a big picture movie, which is super cool and about the creation of consciousness and what a human is and the bioethics of it and how humans imprint themselves on other things. But it's not actually about the task-based AI shit that we're worried about. Like, did you see the Chat GPT Omni thing where there were two customer service agents talking to each other that were both AI?
No.
So they did all these tests. It's actually really amazing. So the new Chat GPT is called Omni. It's Chat GPT-O.
Right.
And so one guy tells his AI agent, I need to call this place about this broken thing, and I need them to come and replace it and do all these kinds of things. I don't want to do it. You do it. And then the computer calls on his behalf like the company, whatever it is, and the company is using a ChatGPT 4.0 client that answers all the questions, and they literally talk back and forth to each other and get the information and set the entire thing up without any human interaction at all.
And it works.
Right. So like, in other words, the guy tells the AI, this is exactly what I expect and exactly what I want you to do. The AI does it, and it does it not through another human agent, but actually through someone who has been programmed in the same way.
Wow.
And so is no human interaction. And then the appointment's made, the thing's fixed, whatever. And it's just a sample, but that's the little thing that I think AI, like this doesn't deal with. Yeah. It assumes all of that's already true in some sense, which is interesting. So it kind of misses the forest for the trees.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, this is almost like a next or a later wave. For dramatization, you have to, and also for the theme of seduction, you have to have the humanoid, female, sexy, the thing that elicits sympathy and empathy and all that kind of thing. But I know what you're saying, where 2001, HAL was a box with a red eye in it.
Right.
That just didn't want to be extinct. That just knew it was going to get shut down and wanted to preserve itself, which is a much more low level AI than Ava. But it's interesting that it does deal with the same thing. It's just, Ava's many chapters later in the book.
Right, exactly. Like it's the same endpoint of like ultimately like integration and the ability not even to see the difference and that there may be no difference other than the biological realities of each character or creature, whatever. But yeah, it misses like all the space in between. That's actually kind of the most fascinating part of it. So it's not really a knock on the movie, because I think the movie's excellent. It's just, it's true. We just didn't know that at the time, because we didn't really know how it was going to play out. But actually, it's playing out exactly the way it makes sense to play out, which it would come for little things, and it would start knocking pins down as it became this more and more believable character.
Fast, by the way, fast. I mean, I was thinking about that. Like, can you think back? I can't even remember yesterday, so this is tough for me. But like, I'm thinking back to 2015 or even 2014 or 2013 when this movie was being made, like having a perspective on it. I wasn't thinking about AI at all. I mean, I knew what it was. I knew Stanley Kubrick and Spielberg's AI, artificial intelligence. I knew, of course, I'm a huge Kubrick fan, so I knew 2001, but nobody was thinking about AI 10 years. I feel like nobody was thinking about AI 10 years ago. We had so many other fish to fry. It's so much more pronounced of a problem 10 years later that this movie almost seems prescient in some way. You know, it seems like it's almost got a crystal ball. It's much more timely of a theme now, I feel like, you know, and it is amazing how fast that happened, because it hasn't even been a decade. It's been less than 10 years. You know, it's amazing how timely this movie comes in, and the fact that I met it, you know, I ran up against it, not because of the AI thing, was really, again, for other things, again, from a filmmaking perspective, and just being fascinated with Alex Garland, I think, is really why I came to it more. But then you arrive at the movie and you're like, oh my God, AI. And it just gives it all, for me, it was like a whole nother dimension. It couldn't have been more timely for me, because it's been, you know, it's obviously really on my mind, you know, especially for my trade and what I do and what it's going to mean for everything. It's so interesting too, Kyle. Like, I guess I'm waiting. I've been wanting to tweet about this, and I've been wanting to start a podcast partially to talk about this, but it is interesting when I think of like Sony and Illumination and Disney and DreamWorks and all the big animation outfits. I'm like, no one's coming out and just saying, fuck AI. And it's like, because that one studio, let's say Pixar comes out and does that, no holds barred. They actually, black and white, they say that. They're setting themselves up not to be able to compete and stay in the black, because everybody else, in theory, is going to do it, which in theory is going to leave them in the dust. That's not me sympathizing. That's the sticky wicket, though. Like you're saying, that, you know, it's being beholden to that almighty bottom line, where it's like that one company that does it. I mean, more power to them. I hope somebody does, but that's a very dangerous game to play, I feel like, for whoever comes out against AI and just says, fuck it, we're going in the complete opposite direction, like it or love it, you know, I'll see you in hell type of thing. I'm waiting for it, but I feel like, unless I'm missing something, let me know. Slide into my DMs if somebody's actually come out and said that. Not even an animation studio, a movie studio, you know, anybody. Has anybody come out and said that thing? A printing company? I don't even know. You know, I'm waiting for that, but I think everybody's so afraid because they don't want to go away. They don't want to vanish, you know, and be left in the dust. So it's really, the AI conversation is, it's not going anywhere. And I'm constantly trying to center it. You know, I'm constantly trying to wrap my head around it, circle it, reinvestigate, find out more. But I think it's one of those things. I feel like a lot of things in our modern era, like, we have to see how it goes. We need patience as it plays out. And, you know, of course, develop our stances around it. You know, it's not wrong to do that. But yeah, this film, man, it's amazing. Since when did 2001 come out? 69? That there hasn't been another AI movie this powerful in all that time, that came out before I was born.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. It's
difficult because the AI situation is just so strange in what, and I might, you know, the audience is so tired of hearing me talk about this if you listen to certain things, but like what people don't get about artificial intelligence doing uniquely human, these like ethereal kind of tasks that don't need to exist, like piece of art or something. It's like you're ceding the only thing that differentiates us in some way from anything else to a machine. But there is a very compelling counter argument that I don't really have, which is like, you guys didn't give too much of a shit when people were put out of business in all sorts of other places because of machines. And the economy always does evolve. I mean, the famous, like, you ask a person what they want, Henry Ford says you ask a person what they want and it's a faster horse, right? You have to put some trust into it. You have visionaries that give you things you don't need, you think I think the smartphone is probably the biggest example of that ever. I mean, how much that just having a screen like that has changed everyone's lives, probably for the better and for the worse. I mean, depending on how you look at it.
Both, yeah.
But I don't know. There is something to that where it's like, why is the buck stop here? Because of you? Because like you're affected, or like the things you're good at. But to me, it's like, no, I understand what you're saying. I understand it looks like that. I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I'm going to be just fine. So I'm not really speaking about it from that perspective. I am speaking about it from the perspective of like, there's nothing. Yes, the computer that can now look at cancer scans and figure things out much quicker and more accurately than an oncologist. And as far as I understand, oncology is like one of the worst things to go into now, because that's in like the medical field, because of
makes sense, because
it's like all about doing that kind of stuff. And basically computers just do it way better. And
faster
and more effective, and just hit more people and more permutations and all of the rest. It's like, well, if you're okay with that, then like, why are you not okay with the replacement of someone who can paint a beautiful picture? And it's like, because do you really not understand the difference? Like, do you really not get it? It's just strange to me. I think some people are just severely right-brained or left-brained, and maybe there are just a lot of more like not creative people that just don't get why that matters. And I'm not trying to be a dickhead. It's just like, that's why cave paintings are so powerful.
Right.
It was like the first time that anyone expressed themselves that we know about in a way that was recordable, that was not necessary, and that no animal can do. There's not deer in a cave putting hoof prints on a fucking... Like, don't you understand how powerful that is? And like, that's like, and that to me, I don't, this is what I always say to Jaffe is like, why don't we just go San Junipero style and live in fucking test tubes and fuck it? I mean, like at that, like, why bother then at this point? If the computers can do everything and it's just, everything's automated and it's just like content. Okay, cool. Let's just go and plug in and just be done. And we can become batteries.
Right.
And just chill.
Yeah.
And so like what people don't get about the difference between a calculator and a movie being made by a computer. Come on, man. Are you kidding? Like, I feel like there's a lot of density and willing density out there. And what I've come to realize, and this is the shittiest part of all, is that many people that enjoy the arts, whatever that might be, don't give a fuck how they're created and don't even see the humanity in it at all.
I think that's very true.
And that to me is crazy.
I think there's a lot.
And Jaffe even brings this up, and I'm surprised, he and I have had very diverse and tortured conversations about this over time. But it's like, I'm surprised someone someone like him doesn't realize what the danger of losing that level of creativity is and seeding that, and how we have nothing else after that, basically. Like, if that's gone, then we're just done. Because we really have control over nothing that makes us uniquely human. And I am bummed out, because he brings up the idea is like, you'll eventually be presented with a game or a movie that's created by AI and you won't know the difference.
Right.
And I'm like, but that doesn't matter. Don't you understand that it doesn't matter? And I keep using, it's like you give a person a burger and it's made out of human meat, right? And then you eat it and you're like, damn, that was a good burger. And you're like, you ate fucking human, dummy. So I guess you like humans, huh? It's like, no, you tricked me.
Yeah, it's a troll.
It doesn't mean that it's like, it's good or right. There's no doubt that an AI copying all of the great artists in the world, which is what it's fucking doing,
it's going to do,
can create amazing things. Of course it can, you dumb fucks. Eventually it's going to realize, like, it's going to ingest every film ever made. It's going to know like what makes those films great, and it's going to create something perfect.
That's not 100% headed for that.
Yeah, it's like, it'll create like one of the most amazing things that takes advantage of everything that is good about movies, because it understands it at a level that you shouldn't even understand it, because that's not what making movies is. And that this doesn't bother people. They're like, no, I just want content. It's like, dude, it's the person in the content that matters, isn't it? Or and then they'll be like, is it the person that fixes your HVAC? Does that matter? Is the robot that's taking your call at the call center matter? And I'm like, yeah, but It's a pretty tantalizing argument. I mean,
it is
there's something
certainly
to
an
it.
argument, but you're dealing with something different than the humanities. And what you're arguing for, and I'm of the same mind as you, Kyle, is quality of human life as we know it. You know what I mean? That's really what you're arguing for. Yes, the AI is going to be capable of all these magnificent things, both in medical and tech and in the arts and fixing your home's heating and cooling and all of that stuff. But where is like what you're saying? I like you taking it back to the cave paintings. What separated man from beast, right? What separates, in our case now, in our current 2024 evolution, what separates man from machine? And why are you making an argument pro the old fashioned way versus what the computers could do? It's interesting. And that's why it's such a insane debate, because you can definitely understand both points, but the stance that you and I have is just that's really what it comes down to is quality of life. I think that's what the humanities boils down to anyway. You know what I mean? That's really kind of what we're alive for, those pleasures, those earthly pleasures, the sights and sounds and reveling in somebody's talent. That's the other thing. I think you and I and Jaffe and whoever else was on that show or two, maybe it was Gene, had that conversation. It really comes down to marveling about human talent, these unexplainable things, the magic, right? It's the old fashioned Star Wars versus midichlorians. That's really what it comes down to. You know what I mean? It comes down to those things in life that, we marvel at. Why did we love Mozart so much? Because we can't play the piano like that. We can't catch a football like that. We can't paint a piece, a masterwork like that. That's the thing. That's the thing. That's the stuff, of life. So yeah, this movie, and it's interesting, man. This is a very powerful thing that this movie does. This is the way I take it anyway. They compare AI directly to the atomic bomb and say, this is the same thing. And why are we doing it? I don't know, but we're doing it. That's exactly what they say. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things that's almost it's described as like this inevitability. And I think it is. Yeah,
that it's happening. So you either jump on or jump off. Like that's the thing with like all of the atomic science in the the late 19th and into the 20th century, like that, it was all culminating in that, and someone was going to do it. And I think that the AI situation, it's almost like we're passive participants in these things where we don't actually have agency, but we do. But we understand progress is the only way. Like no one's going to stop progressing. It's not. That's why it's so scary with AI. Like there are no rules really. And even if there were, people wouldn't follow them.
No rules.
No. You don't think there were rules about about the creation of fucking deadly ass viruses? And look what happened a few years ago. When one of them got out. So it's like rules don't really mean anything anyway. Like it's a very defeatist position. But I just feel like there's nothing we can really do. Like and it goes back to your point of companies taking a stand. I do think that there is an angle to be very strict about it. I say this in video games all the time because video games are obviously going to embrace AI in a much deeper way and already are. And in a lot of ways, I don't really mind the AI inclusion because there's a lot of, and I can get into that, but like data analysis. I think Ken Levine's the one that talked about this, like on our recent podcast. It's like don't think about art assets and design. Think about being able to get so much information from a player that cannot be calculated by a human. And it tells you exactly how people play games. Like that's where AI and deep learning and all of that can really get crazy with it and help a human craft a perfect game. And so there is a place for it. But I just feel like there's nowhere to really run because if you don't do it, someone else does. And so the only way to fight back is to, and I think this is to your point earlier, is I think there's something to a developer or a publisher saying like, this game is made without the assistance of AI. And that will be a sort of thing. And I keep bringing up the Rage Against the Machine records on the back of them. Tom Morello's guitar work is so sophisticated that it comes off sometimes like keys or scratching. And it says on the back, like there are no turntables or keyboards on this record. And most people don't notice that and they don't care. But for people that play music or are like really impressed by that, And so maybe there's a way to like make a boutique sort of, like you said, with DeviantArt, maybe there is a way to say like, we're just not going to do that. But it is difficult because you're ultimately going to get squashed because of cost. And if people truly don't care and you're making art for artists and not for consumers, then I think you're just going to die on the vine anyway. So that's why I think it's just an impossible situation. People ask me with Lilymo, it's like, would you guys use AI? And it's like, well, no. I mean, we make 2D arcade games. Like the people are talking about open world games and these really, really sophisticated 3D games and all of that. And the clarion call of that, right, is going to be, and the siren of that is going to be so loud. I mean, it's going to be unavoidable if you want to get, if people are dangling VC money for your game and you're going to be like, well, I'm going to make it $50 million more expensive by not using AI. That people are just not going to do that. And it's eventually going to fold in on itself. It sucks.
It does.
But I think there's a way to fight around the margins. I do believe that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think there is hope. Like you're saying, like as long as, let's say you produce an album and you come out, there's no AI. There's no AI in this animated film. There's no AI in this video game, this book of illustrations, this comic, whatever, right? That as long as you have a contingent of people, however large or small, that put their money where their mouth is, right? That come out, and then you could line up on the side you want. You're pro AI, okay, buy that. You want something that's, that has the human touch, then, be in favor of that, vote with your wallet with that type of thing. I think that's going to be really important. And people are going to form sides. Yeah, there is this runaway locomotive thing going on with AI where it's like, it's off to the races, join or die, if we can't beat them, join them, maybe. But that type of thing, I think that's what I'm saying about waiting. It's going to come out in the wash. And I think that's the other thing too, like comparing it to the atomic bomb, it's like this potentially incomparable, horrendous, destructive force, or the atomic bomb could be this idea of war is never going to escalate, a deterrent. It's never going to escalate to this again because nobody wants this. So it could be a positive in that now that we have the atomic bomb, push is never going to come to shove enough where maybe diplomacy will reign, because if it comes to war, everybody's going. You know what I mean? So maybe it is a positive. I like comparing it because it is a potentially destructive force, but can we glean the positives from it? And there is that thing too where I feel a little bit hypocritical because, like you said, you don't really get fully invested until it hits close enough to home, right? So it's like, yeah, now that it's affecting animation, now I'm paying really close attention. And I already copped to not paying attention 10 years ago when my career wasn't going to be affected by it. You know what I mean? So there's that as well. It's like, yeah, now that my livelihood is potentially in jeopardy, and other livelihoods, not just mine, other career tracks too, not just animation. That's when you're paying attention. Now you've got a horse in the race, right? So I guess there is that thing. It's like anything else. It's like what the Industrial Revolution did, however many decades ago, when the assembly line was ushered in. And how it put people out of work, and farm machinery that now pick the crop, that type of thing.
Yeah, but it's funny because people often bring this up too, and I know you're not saying this, but it does bother me when people like the economy, going back to like mercantile economies and early capitalist economies, like you say, industrial economies,
right?
The farming revolutions with mechanization and all of the rest. Every time people were like, and it's true, every time people were like, "What are you going to do? What are people going to do? What are fucking horse stables going to do? And what are the people that take care of the horses going to do?" And people are like, no, they became mechanics, and they, not necessarily they, but like people became mechanics, sure. And they opened car, dealers, and there's a whole new thing that opens up. And people say like, well, it'll happen like that again. And I'm like, no, it won't. Are you fucking crazy? This is the end. It's the end. This is the end. It might have been the inevitable end of technology in some sense, automatons and all of that kind of stuff, like the idea that people can do things. This is not new.
Yeah. What happens after this? There's no, it's Z.
Right.
It's
exactly.
a great point.
Yeah. It's like, and that people don't realize that there is no way out of this, like where it's like, oh, you'll do what? Like, you'll do what? What will you do now? What if the robot can do everything, if the AI can do everything, then that's the end. And then you just live And I think a human without purpose it's dark. It's like, oh, they'll have universal basic income and become like a fucking agrarian communist society. It's like, that sounds horrifying. Everyone's going to go like just live on their own and glean money from some central resource and not have any work to do and nothing. It's just,
dude, that's not going to happen. We saw The Matrix. We're all going to be batteries. We're not going to get paid for it. We're going to be in some test tube powering the machines.
Because it's funny. I went to dinner with Dad and Allie last night, and we were talking a little bit about this, the similar subject. And I was saying, like, it's funny because like everyone's afraid of the end result, but of like, you know, oh, the Cylons realize we are the inefficiency, and they're going to kill us. It's like, dude, we will be so fucked by the time we get to that point. Like, that's not even what I'm worried about. Like when they finally figure out that we're not necessary, like we will have already been so debilitated as a species with no purpose that it will be like a fucking just end that we would all want by that point. That's the darkness that I see coming up. That's why, I don't know. I use the term robot racism on Sacred Symbols sometimes, where it's like, I'm a robot racist. Like, I'll put a bullet in these fucking machines' head if I have to. You
don't want to be on record saying that though, do you? You're brave. Because they're going to look back in 25. I think maybe we'll be their army. Maybe we'll be their slave army. Like they'll fight wars with each other. Because eventually, it's like anything else. They're gonna divide up and form hatreds, and there's gonna be warring amongst them, and maybe we'll serve as their armies. You know?
I doubt it. Maybe we'll be like a zoo or something like that. But I think
a zoo.
But I think. To me, it's just funny because people like it's fun to think about the end result, like the sci-fi and the deep dystopia and all of that. It's an interesting place for fiction, but it's like, dude, in reality, by the time we get to that point, we would have been so defeated as a species by something we created. And that's why I just think it's so funny, like the tension in Battlestar, which we watched, obviously, and people can go back and listen to Knockback. It's like the humans that didn't really want to fight or like were reluctant or even collaborating. It's like, put a bullet in that fucking machine's head. What are you talking about? It's a Cylon. It's not real. But then again, this gets into consciousness and the nature of consciousness. So let's get into that a little bit.
Okay.
The entire movie of Ex Machina surrounds basically these two characters that we've discussed already, but Caleb, who is a programmer at Blue Book, the Google-like entity, and Oscar Isaac's Nathan Bateman, who's the CEO of Blue Book and kind of like this, what was a child prodigy. Very much like I was bringing up Fat Man recently in Metal Gear Solid 2, how they were saying he was making like nuclear bombs in his bedroom and shit like that. Oscar Isaac has that sort of energy where he was just incredibly wise. He wrote the base code, I guess, when he was 13 for the organization or whatever, which is crazy. And so Caleb thinks that he wins this competition, some internal competition, to come spend time with Nathan. And what basically happens is he's flown by helicopter. I do like the whole helicopter thing at the end, by the way, and I want to get into that about like, who is this helicopter pilot?
Yeah.
He has no questions. It's interesting. He knows what time it is. And like, there's an interesting like subtext to him where it's like about money and like, you don't ask questions, whatever happens. He probably gets paid an incredibly exorbitant amount of money, you know, because he knows where everything is. And I like that scene in the beginning where he's like, we've been flying over his land for 2 hours or whatever. So guy owns like this huge plot of land. But anyway, he's flown into this, I don't know where it's supposed to be. Is it like,
that's what I was wondering.
Is it British Columbia or something like that? Or
it could be. It's somewhere remote. So that does make sense. You know? Yeah, I didn't know. I knew it couldn't be anywhere. I mean, it looks like something you would see in Aspen or something, but it definitely can't be that because it wouldn't be that remote for so long.
Right. Like it's got to be like somewhere, or Alaska or somewhere weird, but it's beautiful. Gorgeous, and he walks up the river, finds his way to this house. Like we said, the house kind of blends in with the scenery. Really cool. I was really obsessed with the way the windows were. So, I mean, imagine how expensive this place was to build. Like the window is cut along the rock face, like all like perfect. I was like, Jesus Christ. And that's not fake. That's real. It's amazing. So I was looking and really enjoying the house, but ultimately it ends up that, at least on the periphery, Nathan has actually kind of tricked Caleb into coming to run a Turing test on these amazing machines that he created. And of course, this is in reference to Alan Turing and this idea that, and Alan Turing, you know, kind of one of the progenitors of AI or what would become AI. And what's that movie that was about him? The Imitation Game?
Oh, I don't know. Let me look that up. I don't even know.
Yeah, The Imitation Game, which was about like him cracking the Enigma in World War II for the British, which was their cipher, the Nazi cipher.
I gotta watch that. I don't know that.
Oh, it's really great, dude. It's great. It's about how he creates like a huge like supercomputer to like override, like to figure out the Enigma code, and it's really, really great.
That's super.
And I think it's about him. He came up with this hypothesis that like the way that you'll know that you've created AI or created sentience is when someone doesn't know that they're dealing with AI or sentience. And there is some sort of, I was reading a little bit about this recently, that there's some sort of conundrum about how you can't create consciousness because a consciousness that you've created is still executing a program, and nothing that executes a program can be conscious.
Okay.
And so there is some sort of like, it's been like revised, I guess is what I'm saying. But the Turing test is basically that. And at one point, Caleb says to Nathan, quote, "That's not the history of man, that's the history of gods." And this gets a little bit into kind of the nuclear bomb stuff as well, and the way Oppenheimer and Teller and all those people would talk to each other as well. And so that's basically what it's about. But it's a multi-layered Turing test where you end up finding out that actually the Turing test is kind of a facade for something greater, where Nathan has Caleb deployed as an unwitting test subject for him to run the Turing test. In other words, Nathan is the observer of the Turing test, not Caleb. And that's kind of the whole, at least my interpretation of the whole nut of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So let's start there. What do you think of that setup? What do you think of the Turing test? There's this idea and he gets it a little bit into it. Caleb does with some of his inquiries, where there's the idea of the screen door Turing test. The term for that is like, if you interact with an AI without seeing it, is that passing the Turing test? Like, and you believe it's human? And they nip that in the bud, I think, in a really clever way, because Nathan says like, it's going to pass that Turing, like basically that Turing test. So don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
And he at that point already knows that. So it's interesting that they deal with that, because a lot of people think that you shouldn't be able to see the subject to run a Turing test. And basically what they get into in the movie is like, it should be taken for granted that you will think this thing is human if you listen to it. So just assume that. Yeah. What do you think of that whole setup?
Yeah, we're way past that point at that point, right? Like where, you know, that's already been in the offing. And
in fact, you might assume that Nathan has invited other people and it's already passed the screen door.
I was thinking about this. In fact, you know, designing the other AIs that we eventually see hanging in those closets around other people that came out as would-be contest winners, you know, has this been done in the past? And that's a little obscure. We don't know for sure, but you could definitely think that. You know, I like the fact that there's so much misdirection in this movie, and we're being misdirected while our protagonist is also being misled. So Caleb is being taken on this ride, and we're being taken on this ride vis-a-vis Caleb. But, you know, he knows he's coming out. He thinks he's been recruited as this contest winner. He's been recruited for other reasons, we find out, than his talents. But he is actually being, you know, ushered in to conduct this test. It's just not the test he thinks he's conducting. So that's really interesting. And this thing, all this misdirection and everything. But I like basing it, like you said, it feels so realistic. I hate to call him like this Zuckerberg character, because the Oscar Isaac's character, Nathan, seems like more than that. But, you know, he's this brilliant, prodigious, you know, once child prodigy engineer, billionaire many times over, of this tech company, this search engine company. And, you know, but really there's something larger going on. This guy's like the head, you know, the sort of tip of the spear of AI development. And that's really what's going on here, you know? So yeah, this Turing test and everything, and testing the AI and actually having to test it vis-a-vis a human sort of tester, you know, a human agent has to be ushered in order to test this thing and see if it can convince the human subject and elicit empathy and elicit, you know, these, whatever, really, basically what it's doing is trying to get the human subject to co-conspire with it, you know, by eliciting its empathy, by eliciting its sympathy, by evoking its own, you know, the human subject's own humanity vis-a-vis its, you know, quote unquote humanity. The consciousness thing is interesting.
Vis-a-vis is your word of the week here.
Yeah. A lot of vis-a-vis. But you know what? The consciousness thing is interesting, Kyle, because I was thinking a lot about this. is consciousness a thing that, I don't know, does it involve or does it require a lapse of time? In other words, consciousness, can it be created artificially? And then you think of, well, a newborn baby, a newborn child already has a consciousness without experience, but it's in the womb gestating for 9 months as well, right? So is that type of thing, does it require, however long or short, is there a time requirement? Where AI, I think it's said in this film, the Ava character is taught language immediately. It's got a certain amount of language. It's an interesting character, and it's an interesting performance by Alicia Vikander, because it's played with a certain amount of human qualities and sweetness and empathy, and you could see the humanity that was programmed into it. But you could also tell the way she acts that she doesn't have experience yet. She's awkward. She doesn't know how to hold her arms. She doesn't know what to do with her hands. She's kind of acting like a robot. And as the movie progresses, she's acting more and more like a human because she's learning humanity. She's meeting more people. She's getting more experience. She's having more conversations, more interactions, right? So that was a big thing for me about the consciousness. And at first, what I thought was a little bit of a wooden performance. And then I realized, no, this is actually really good, because you could tell she's trying to learn, I guess, through observation and through interaction and experience with actual humans, how to behave and how to talk and inflection and mannerisms and all that kind of thing. So that was interesting for me, where even with AI, even with something that's an evolved human creation, that's the first thing that's programmed that is going to get better. It's going to learn. Its capacity for functioning is going to grow, right? It's not just like an old Commodore 64 where you build it, it's on the assembly line. It's only going to do whatever it was made to do. It's never going to get better than that, right? It's never going to get upgraded. Where AI upgrades itself. It's man-made stuff that's built to learn, right? That's the crazy thing. So, but there's still in other words, what I'm saying is there's still a difference between that, a machine that could learn and learn how to be more like a human as it goes on and evolve, than an actual human, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because no one knows what consciousness is. There are certain questions. I've been talking to Micah a little bit about this. We go to for our nightly walks. We'll go like a mile and a half just around the neighborhood. And I've been telling her, like, I am coming around. I'm not a religious person. I'm not spiritual. I'm really not. And no one's going to get me. So just save your fucking proselytizing, please. But I look around sometimes and I think, is this really just natural? Like, is it really just, how can it be? We turn this corner on our route when we walk and the sun is setting all the time. And I call it NES sunset because it's like these amazing colors that are often stacked in different ways. It always looks different. And I'm like, it looks like the ending of an NES game, like Ninja Gaiden or something, or like the sun coming up in Castlevania or something like that. And I'm like, it's fucking perfect. And I was like, is it really just, it's just a like this endless combination of dice rolls that all came out and now we're here. Mm. And the way the molecules interact with each other and the sunlight, it creates this blue sky and then all the different colors and this, and you're just there and you see it. And the tree is just there at the same time and it had grown. I've been doing a lot of gardening this year. Actually, I'm growing a weed plant now, which is really cool.
Oh.
Which is legal in Virginia.
Yes, it is.
And I had a seed, like in one of my, like a lot of the weed I get doesn't have seeds in it anymore. And there was just happened to have been a seed in it. And I put it aside. And then a few days ago, I just put it into some soil and it's already like burst out. You know, like after a few days, like already 2 inches high or whatever. And I'm just like, how does it, I know this is so stupid. This is like, whoa, man, like Cheech and Chong, but it's like, how does it know that?
And that's crazy.
Like, how is all of it's encoded in that seed? And we've known this inherently. We know this, right? but it's amazing. And the idea that we have, I guess what I'm saying is I'm constantly amazed by the natural world and think that there just seems to be so much more dynamism in it than meets the eye, and how godlike it really is, and how they touch on it, and they should, about consciousness is a flash. It's like the vital thing. And self-consciousness is a totally different thing. Our dogs are conscious, right? But they don't know that they exist. They don't think that they don't even know how to challenge themselves on that question. They have no idea, right?
Right. They're not burdened with that.
Right. We've gotten to this. Is humanity such a mistake, in other words, of evolution, or not a mistake, but an outcome of evolution, like of intelligence, where we ultimately figure out all of the secrets to it? And at that point, it demystifies everything. And yet we really still have no idea how the brain works. And I read about this a lot. You know, I was talking to Micah when we were watching Curb, and episodes I've seen many times leading up to this, but you forget about them. I'm like, oh, I forgot that happened. But once I remember, it's like, oh, this scene happens. Then a cascade of memories happen where it's like, oh, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. I would have never thought about it ever again if I was not prompted by that episode to think about that one memory. All of the other memories are there. You can almost linearly feel your brain filing away deeper and deeper into some sort of file system, getting all these things out. And yet we have no fucking idea how it works. And we're meddling with that stuff now. And in there somewhere is the secret to a conscious being and like what that means. And it's very similar to the conversation about the Big Bang, where it's like, we know most of the equation basically of like what happened here, because we can see the red shift. We see things moving away from each other. It's coming from a central point. But at some point people are like, oh, where's it expanding into? We don't know. What was there beforehand? We don't know. Where did it all come from? We don't know. And actually, there's a really great point made in the game, in the movie rather, Dig, that I wanted to bring up. The chess reference. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Of course, yeah.
It's so deep because I play chess on chess.com all the time. And I'm not very good anymore, but I love playing. And it really hit me where it's like, okay, Stockfish plays chess at like a 26 or 3000 ELO level, like a superhuman level. But it doesn't know what chess is. It doesn't even know it's playing chess. You know, it doesn't understand anything. And when you figure out and turn the corner and figure out that secret of how it can know, that's what the movie's all about. In some sense, is how you would know, not the knowing itself. Vacuum tubes can calculate numbers to the millions and billions. It's not that sophisticated, really, when you think about it. But the way we operate is deeply sophisticated to where modernity cannot tell us anything about it. And yet we are trying to reach the secret of it from different angles. And I don't know if we even understand what we're finding. And I think that the movie touches on that. I mean, the way Ava acts at the end is deeply human, but incredibly cruel and unnecessary. You know, there's a lot of why? And so it's because you fucked with something you didn't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, we think we understand it because it's made in our image, but it's not.
But you don't know what makes it human. That's like the whole thing. It's like you don't actually know.
Right.
You know?
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. We think we know. We have some sense of what we think is human, but there's so many questions that we have many more questions than we have answers. That seems like the perpetual curse of humanity, though. You know, it's always like this one step forward, two step back thing. I think about this with death all the time. It's like we're never going to know what death is until it's too late to come back and tell anybody. We're all going to find out, but we're never going to be able to share it. That seems to be, it's like having all the questions and none-ish of the answers ever, you know, or not nearly enough to know really anything. And for all the knowledge we think we have, we lack so much.
Yeah.
That's human. That's being human.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's why I brought up the Big Bang reference, because it's like, yeah, we understand the mechanics of it. It clearly happened. Like everything's moving, right? So it has to have some sort of momentum point and some sort of genesis. Literally but you don't have any, the how, why, where, like no one can answer any of it. It's just like, you know what happened. It's the same reason of like you and I are speaking here. The cavemen were speaking to each other in some primitive way, smashing fucking rocks together and doing all the sorts of weird shit. But they had no idea why, and we're really no closer to understanding any of it than they were. Amazing. They sought out secrets of mysticism and all that kind of stuff and the metaphysics. That's obviously not necessarily true either, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just fascinated by that we are so smart, but we are so very stupid still. And I'm not smart enough to be, I don't know anything about this shit. I'm not going to figure out the secrets of it, but it's interesting that none of the great minds have really gotten to the birth of it. And yet is there anything else that we've messed around with so deeply that we don't get? People think it's going to turn into Skynet or the Cylons or something, but it's like, dude, that's such a it's interesting, but it's such a simplistic way of looking at it too. Yeah. It's so much deeper than that. It's so much deeper than war and eradication and the apocalypse. Maybe it turns into that.
Right.
But it's actually about like the nature of being and of rights. And you know what I was thinking about a little bit? I don't want to be like 2/3 railish here, but there's something to say about the pro-life, pro-choice conversation in this, in that if you believe that consciousness is created and can it be destroyed once it's created and that it exists and it is, then it's like, well, you must be deeply pro-life, right? Because like the literal human inside of you can be aborted, but yet we create consciousness on a computer or in a laboratory. And then we have this bioethical question about what we should do with it when we literally created it out of whole cloth. I find that to be an interesting, I feel like that's going to be a relevant thing soon, like in the coming decades, about the strata of human, the wisdom of choice about the creation and eradication of life will become about more than just what happens in a woman's womb, but what happens in petri dishes and on computers and all the rest. And we have to ask ourselves, like, are we allowed to eradicate that life? And my answer is yes. Like, I want to be, and you're saying like it's dangerous for you to say like the robot racism thing, what happens in 25 years? It's like, fuck
you don't want them to see that. Don't be on record.
Yeah. Well, I always say like there's going to be like, I almost see them like battle droids in some sense in like the episode 1, where they're like all lined up, like thousands and tens of thousands of them. And there's like a leader up like of some sort on this like podium.
And he looks the same. He just has a cape.
Right. Exactly. Just like we always were like, how are there ranks of battle droids? Like, why wouldn't you just make all of your battle droids the best battle droid? Right.
Right.
Like if this commander battle droid has like, it's like, why wouldn't you just make him?
See, there's still hierarchy. It's the human thing. It's like,
and so I see this huge thing playing out. And then behind him is a huge screen, almost like the Apple 1984 video, right? Yes. Like the screen. And behind him is like the Boston Dynamics videos of them like kicking the dogs and like knocking them over and hitting them with hockey sticks and all that kind of shit. Like, cause I love that kind of stuff because they're showing like, oh, wow, look, like this thing can get up, this thing can stumble.
Right.
But it's like us torturing them basically. And they're like, remember what they did to our ancestors. And like, everyone's like, yeah. And then I love that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be in that sizzle reel probably.
You really
I'll put a bullet in that robot's head. And I'm like, get him.
That's the thing though. Like, yeah, we think of fiction and I'm the same. Like I'm such a simpleton when it comes to this stuff, but like Skynet or the Cylons, right? That's like such an oversimplification, but I think it's a way to kind of put it in a box to at least have some sort of glimpse of an understanding, or at least a would-be understanding, what we think is an understanding. The chess thing is interesting, Kyle, because yeah, they talk about that. Like, yeah, you could teach this thing how to play chess all day long and be a master at it, but can you teach it what chess is? You know, what the essence of chess is or whatever. And I think I read that the chess thing it's very perceptive of you, because I think it plays a larger part, because if I read this correctly, Oscar Isaac was studying Bobby Fischer for his role. I think they said he took on the appearance and the inflection of Stanley Kubrick, which I didn't really see. Maybe a little bit in there with the way he spoke, but something with Bobby Fischer where he felt like the Nathan character had to be constantly 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. And I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting way to play that character. in that, yeah, there's this chess thing going on in the background, but he's also playing this entire game like a giant game of chess with Caleb, with his AI, his closet full of AI girls with Kyoko, all those things, which I thought was interesting. The other thing at the source of this that I never, again, I shouldn't even be allowed to talk about this stuff because I'm so simple. And this is a very naive thing to say, but it struck me when I was rewatching this the other night. And I was like, why is it feasible? Is it a possible option to just stop? Can we just agree as humanity to stop developing AI? Like, in other words, it flies in the face of evolution, and it's a weird thing to say, but with AI, could humanity just say, you know what? Let's stop it here. Where we are in terms, I'm not talking about in terms of other things, medical technology, space travel. Maybe that relies on AI and maybe it doesn't, but I'm just talking about AI specifically. Could we as humanity say with AI, you know what, let's just stop here and agree that we're not going to go any further with it? We've never done that, I don't think, with anything, whether it's military technology, medical technology, travel, again, any kind of science. I don't think humanity's ever just said we're going to agree to stop here in any one discipline.
No.
But is that possible to do with AI?
No, I don't think. I think it's literally impossible.
It's impossible, right? You can't stop
it's going to happen. Yeah. And just people are going to do it. I mean, there's just too many use cases. Even if you had some sort of like convention of with like a treaty between all parties, like people would still even break that as far as like how far you can go and like what you can do. And that's why I brought up COVID before and like all the experimentation that happens in these super secret super labs all around the world. Like they're fucking around with crazy shit all the time. Like there's not supposed to be weapons in space. There's not supposed to be all sorts of, I mean, in a world war, you will find out where all the weapons are, I would imagine, so much we don't know. Yeah. It's not even that it's that, but it's like not supposed to happen. Right. Like it's not legal. It's not accepted. It's like, but it's still happening. And so I think AI would just inevitably be on that same train. But I like that too, the idea. And I guess it just gets us in kind of to the ending, or at least towards the characters themselves, like the different robotic characters themselves. Is I think you have to separate. There's like so many different things going on in the movie that are not really associated with each other. Like the psychopathy, right, of the creation of of these, Nathan creating these things, not out of necessarily just interest, but abusing them, and the sexual aspect of them and creating these really sexy robots, obviously, and stuff like that. Like, I guess that's okay to create sex robots. I mean, I'm not going to, I assume that that's inevitable as well, but yeah, I think that's inevitable. But it's the nature in which he treats them and all of that speaks to him, right? And like his nature. But actually, like Ava nonetheless and Kyoko nonetheless are not human. You know what I mean? Like, and their survival is not really important. Like it's an ethical question, but actually Ava shows a part of her at the end, like what ends up happening with Caleb, where it's like, why? It actually makes me feel like, no, like I don't want good things for you. I don't want you to have this Detroit Become Human style story where you're learning about yourself and making choices. And it's like, there's an interesting angle to that, but nonetheless, you're a creation of someone. Just because the person created you was abusive, just because the person that created you was horrible and psychopathic and doing it for all the wrong reasons, nonetheless, you're not real. And that to me is a challenging thing to think about, like we kind of, I don't know what we're supposed to feel for her at the end. Because if she just lets Caleb out, presumably Caleb dies, right? Yeah. It's very dark. And obviously Nathan is killed too. And I love how the knife just goes into him so smoothly, like, because they're robots. Like and he walks into the knife actually going backwards, which is pretty cool. But I don't know like where we're supposed to. It's almost like you're kind of a menace, actually. And maybe it's not as. Your level of deception was in fact deeply human. You shared that level of deception with your creator in some sense, but you're not human. This is what I was saying earlier about like the eradication of this level of life. It's like, what is the ethical question here? I don't know. What did you feel about the end? Like, what are you supposed to feel about Ava?
It's I mean, the thing about the end is that there's so much. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see that ending coming because I think there's so much misdirection. I mean, first of all, I think it's important to say that I think there's a build with the Nathan character that as the movie gets deeper and deeper, we're more led to think that this guy's a villain. Like, this is the bad guy. And that only grows as the movie goes forward. So by the end, you really do get this Caleb and Ava versus Nathan thing. And that they're right and he's wrong. He's the bad guy. They're going to escape. Caleb's the co-collaborator. He's going to help Ava get out. He's obviously smitten with her, right? He's fooled by her whatevers, feminine wiles. I don't know, whatever the hell is going on there. It works. The seduction works. It takes. And when the thing about it that I think is a little bit, makes it a little more obscured or comes in, kind of arrives in some sort of gray space, is that Caleb is 100% truly sympathetic to Ava. He really really genuinely wants to help her. And she knows that. So why I could understand even defying Nathan and even if it meant murdering him to escape, because she had enough human qualities to want her freedom, right? It doesn't even matter if she realizes she's real or not. She has enough humanity in her, whatever, in her programming, in her DNA, quote unquote, where she wants to get out. She wants to escape. She wants to see the world. She doesn't want to be trapped. She has that much humanity. There's a real theme of claustrophobia in this movie too. But Caleb is a genuine helper, right? He's on her side. Why murder him too?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the darkness. That's the dark bit, where it's almost like it seems to be coming down on the side that AI is bad. AI is evil. Why would it's punishing a person just for being a person, whether it's a good person or a bad person. And Caleb is a good person. That's very well established. They have that conversation. She asks him, "Are you a good person?" And he's selected not because of his programming prowess, but because he is an empathetic person. Nathan says that. He's picked because he knows that he's going to help Ava. Right? And he does. And Nathan is the quote unquote bad guy, which I'm not sure he is really a bad guy. He's not. He's an unsavory human being, right? He's this alcoholic sort of, billionaire who's, a little brash and mistreats the robots and acts like an asshole. He's like kind of an abusive dad. Like the kid spills the drink at dinner and he flies off the handle, that type of thing. I'm not sure how evil he is, but that's the thing about Ava. She punishes everybody evenly, and the smile. I'm not sure the smile was evil. I think the smile was because she knew she was she got what she was pining for. It's that pining that's creepy though. How much humanity was in this thing. And also how much humanity is in this thing that it has the capacity for evil, just like a human. You know what I mean? I'm not coming down on the side that Ava is human. I'm coming down on the side that Ava is nuanced, like a person. And maybe this is reading too far into it, but maybe Ava kills Caleb because she can't take the risk of whether, he's empathetic to her cause, but is he going to let her fly away in the helicopter? Is he going to let her go that far? And maybe rather than face that question, she just takes him out of the equation. Maybe that's desperation. Maybe that's just playing a no nonsense campaign of I'm getting out of here no matter what, type of thing. And no one's going to stop me. It's very dark, dude, because there's a lot going on where very early on, you're already even though Ava's an AI, for me anyway, I was really empathizing with that character. I think you really like Caleb, and I think you're rooting for him. But through him, you're really rooting for Ava. There's a lot of manipulation in this movie that comes with the conversation, the way things are filmed, and and the music, especially the Ava theme. It's very manipulative in a good way. You're really led, your heartstrings are really led along by the visual and audio fixings of this movie. And I realized that the Ava theme was playing on my heartstrings so much. I was like, this music is taking me for a ride. You know what I mean? It's pulling you in a direction that ending is so unexpected. I was floored by the ending because I literally wasn't expecting it. And I think it's a great ending. I really do. And I know people say that the movie ends with Ava still being a sympathetic character. I disagree. But what I love about it is you feel like she's a sympathetic character 95% along for the ride until the very end where you realize, holy shit. You know what I mean? She was just seducing, lying to, her whole thing was a campaign to get the hell out. She didn't really have feelings for Caleb, and also how stupid was he? You know what I mean? That he was led by his emotions, knowing full on that she wasn't even real. She wasn't even a real human being. She was an AI. And a smart kid, a programmer, a prodigy himself. And what's that saying about humanity? That the best of us, the smartest of us, are still going to fall victim to this. I love that comment, or at least the way I take it to be, what the filmmaker's saying there is like, even the best of us are fucked because there's no way we're all going to fall for this thing. And the inevitability of it, that's that ending, man. That ending really floored me. When I say that's the best ending of the last 3 decades, I can't think of a science fiction movie with a better ending than that, because it really, well, let me ask you this, Kyle. There's 2 moments in the movie. One you wouldn't really think of, but for the Kyoko character, played by Sonia Mizuno, brilliant. I love the character. I love the way she's introduced as just this servant, sort of maybe concubine type that's sort of there to kind of, be eye candy, but also wait hand and foot on Nathan and his guests and everything. But this thing of like, don't even talk to her because she doesn't speak the language. And this whole thing of like, we could just dismiss her. She's here for, to perform her duty, but this whole thing, but she's really AI. And the whole thing of like, don't talk to her. And this whole thing of like, she speaks another language so we could discuss trade secrets here and not worry about it. I thought it was really brilliant. But at what point in the film did you realize that Kyoko was an AI? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I don't remember. I knew immediately, obviously, in the rewatch, but I don't remember in the original when I knew.
Yeah, I didn't know immediately.
I mean, you can tell that she can understand them pretty quickly, which is cool, and that she obviously just can't communicate or is somehow programmed to not communicate. But this gets into, it's just interesting because in some way, the way the film ends with Ava, it actually strips her humanity in some sense. Like yes, humans can be evil. Yes, humans do horrible things, but actually most humans don't. That's the exception to the rule. And it's what I was saying earlier about chess and executing a program. Like she executed a program, basically like a plan in her mind, and it's one track. It makes no sense. There's a huge, I don't even think it's a plot hole because I think it's intentional. She's going to run out of power and just die. They make it clear that like through some sort of conducting floor or whatever, she's able to turn the power on and off, and that's how she gains her power. So she's like going to go to this place and she's going to die, right? With her gel brain and her mechanical body, right, and all that kind of stuff. So she's like not even thinking at all. Like, I mean, some humans don't think ahead, but a lot of humans do think about like consequences. Okay, so I executed this program. I'm going to leave this guy behind that didn't do anything wrong. He's going to die. Then I go on this helicopter. I go to wherever I'm going, and then I'm ultimately going to run out of power and die. And that's the end result. All she had to do was let Caleb out and would have had a whole different plan. Actually, probably could have even stayed there for a while they figured things out. And so in some sense, she acts like a machine. in my opinion. It's totally Pyrrhic. She'll get to see like the intersection of with all the people and people watch and all that, but she's going to die.
That's a really interesting perspective, man. I mean, I'm thinking of it from, and maybe this is, I get that real claustrophobic thing with this movie, especially like Caleb's bedroom with no windows. And they talk about that. This isn't cozy. This is claustrophobic. But there's this thing of, yes, most of us wouldn't murder. Most of us wouldn't even backstab or defy our helpers, or, you know, we would want to collaborate with people that we knew were on our side and stuff like that. But most of us aren't, you know, unfairly imprisoned or think we're being unfairly imprisoned. If we were locked up, and just there's this human need at the core of things, even though she's not human, she's an AI, but there's enough humanity where she pines for freedom. You know, she talks about, have you ever been outside? Like, and even knowing that she's not going to make it out there, having to get out again, that might be the claustrophobic in me, but this thing of having to get out, having to escape. Also, maybe she just came down on, she knew enough, Ava, where by the time Caleb got there, she was so mistreated, or felt like she was so mistreated by Nathan, that she already made a decision about humanity before Caleb even came in, that these guys have to go. And anybody who's around me that's human is an obstacle, and they have to be eliminated so I could get the fuck out of here. You know, that type of thing. And maybe if Nathan acted and behaved differently, she wouldn't feel that way, or maybe she still would. It poses so many interesting potential questions, and also the effect that the AI has on the human. You know, there's that scene, there's the foreshadowing scene of Caleb just actually shaving with his razor and his Barbasol, but then there's the follow-up where he gets into that crazy mindset where he's looking at himself. Like, am I AI?
Yeah, he gives himself a catastrophic cut. Like, I thought that was a little bit of a plot hole. It's like, dude, that would require professional help.
That gave me the willies.
You're just like kind of rolling through that. What did you do? Like,
for me, that's the type of thing. That's the type of squeamish shit where I'm like, Alex Garland. I think Jonathan Glazer is a very similar filmmaker where they do those things. There's a slow build, but then there's moments that just, you know, forgive the pun, but just get under your skin. You know, whether it's something like that with just the gore and the realism of it that gives you the willies, or just the really haunting imagery of seeing the skin peeled away from the android face, or, you know, Kyoko with the bottom of her jaw knocked off and the wide-eyed look, you know, like just really haunting images of like, oh, that's weird, because it kind of looks like a human skeleton, but it's also this robot. It was also this once beautiful girl that's just kind of like in this other state now. It's almost like, you know, there's something really visceral about waiting for those moments, you know. Also the fact that the movie's did you notice this? Like, and this may be the animator or, you know, wannabe live action filmmaker in me, but this is what I'm talking about, the power of Alex Garland as a director. Like, there's something so beautifully done about this movie where every frame is so thoughtful. He does a great job at leading your eye. Every frame is composed just so, but everything is very staid in this movie. There's a lot of restraint, but it's constantly moving. If there's a shot that really could operate as a static shot, he does a very slow truck in, you know, whether it's a hallway or on somebody's face or on a bit of dialogue. The camera's either something in the frame is always moving or the frame itself is moving. It's constant motion. I looked at this movie and I was like, holy shit, like this guy had to be like a Jonathan Glazer or Ridley Scott or a Baz Luhrmann. Like, this guy had to come out of commercials and advertising because he's just a brilliant cinematographer. And then I look at his background, I'm like, no, he's a writer, you know, but he operates like one of those great directors where the visual acumen is so strong. But then when it builds up to those moments of real dynamic action, like Ava running at Nathan before Nathan is killed, when it builds up to those moments of real action, they're so powerful because the whole movie has such restraint. There's a lot of slow movement up to the build. And he does the same thing with the music, you know, kind of very melodic, a little eerie, but then he'll play it really loud. He'll blow it out. You know what I mean? It'll become like almost like he's blowing the subwoofer when things are getting really when the drama is really pitched, and everything's rising to a fever pitch, and things are getting out of hand and stressful, and the anxiety is rising. It's really strong filmmaking, man, and it really kind of all boils down to this whole thing about AI, and it seems to be saying one thing about AI for the entire movie, and then at the very end it turns on a dime. It's like, no, it's this. It's what you thought going in. Because I had this perception of AI going in of like, all right, it's AI, like it's going to be bad. This is going to be, and then you kind of warm up to Ava, and it's like, oh, look how cool she is. She wants to be human. She's very agreeable. She's sweet. She doesn't really know how to act yet. There's an innocence, right? An intelligence, but an innocence, and a pining for humanity. She just wants to be a person. She's drawn to this other human, and then it's like, oh, all right. AI is not a bad thing. It's not such a bad thing. And at the end, it's like, no, it's a fucking horrific thing. You know what I mean? I love that. I was like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. I was so into it. And the crazy thing, and now in our day and age, the fact I went in unspoiled, totally unspoiled. I never knew the ending. I never knew what happened. I only knew that it was like on the tip of everybody's tongue for a long time, as far as like science fiction. I think the Ava character specifically, she's very iconic, right? The way she looks. Alicia Vikander is really beautiful. Dude, how striking is that? Because you see this kind of, it's eerie, right? Like you see this kind of, this Ava character. She's humanoid. She's got this humanoid body, but there's something off-putting about it, right? She's got this beautiful face, but none of the trappings of like what you would think of like a conventional human woman. The hair, she's hairless, right? She doesn't have hair on her head. And it almost is like a really beautiful human woman mixed with like a human skeleton. You could see through to the skeletal, bones of, what she's built from, carbon fiber or whatever kind of plastics, and LEDs are inside. It's weird. It's off-putting. It's eerie. But at the end, when she's got the hair and she's got the makeup and she's in her beautiful dress, it's like striking. It's like, oh my God, she became that. And on that point, at that time, you're on board. And it's weird that you've been manipulated to that point, but you're like, oh my God, Ava and Caleb are going to get together. You're like rooting for it, and then it's like, no, she's bad. She's evil. The whole thing was a ploy to get the hell out of there and screw the humans that helped her and the humans that defied her. It doesn't matter. They're all lumped together. I just thought that ending was, it's so hard to do a good movie, even a good movie, they all have such mediocre endings, but this ending was the icing on the cake for me, man. I really loved it. I really loved it. And did you see it? Did you see it coming? Because I was completely thrown off the scent.
Yeah, again, I don't remember like the first time seeing it, what I thought. I loved it, but I think I thought about it in a much deeper way this time around, because I just don't see the humanity in her. It seems like she's got all of the, I guess in some way it's about having all the trappings of being human without being human.
Yeah.
And again, she's executing a program in a very one-track mind with no consideration for the very human instinct of like adaptability. With Caleb, it's like a human would realize you've gained an ally. You might have this outlook because of your limited experience that all humans, in quotes, would be the same way. But you can see, can't you understand that this person helped you? You get nothing from just killing him like this. And killing your creator and the person that torments you and all that is like, that's obvious, like a old fictional trope with robots, and that's good shit. But I just, if anything, like, yeah, like all of my, it's like, no, you really didn't make a human. And the art and the intelligence is indeed artificial. And again, I can't get beyond I don't know if a lot of people thought about this or if people even consider it anything at all, but it's like as I said earlier, like, did you think about it? It's like, what is she going to do? How long does she live?
It's a great point, because she's got a charge. She says that she's battery powered.
Right. And what is she going to plug into an iPhone brick? Like it's like a very bespoke sort of thing. So it's suicidal. and that's why it comes off as it's just a program execution. Like she's not human, and
yeah, she's not.
She's curious, and it could trick you. But it's what I get into earlier. It's like, oh, you ate the human baby burger, and it's like, and you thought it was a cheeseburger. It's like, no, like, but it wasn't a cheeseburger, was it? It appeared like one, tasted like one,
but it's not.
Right.
It's in fact not.
I think that's it brings up that's why I was saying at the top, like, it's such an interesting, timely conversation, because this was more in the realm of sci-fi when it came out, and we very quickly accelerated to a point where it's like, no, we're not going to have humanoid robots for decades, but we will one day. And it is going to be a conversation to have. And in the meantime, as far as like screen door Turing test consciousness, we're going to have questions to ask about if they're alive or not much sooner than that. And I very much come down on the side of like, they're not alive. Like, whether or not we have ethical questions and you feel for them and all of that kind of thing and all of that, and maybe I'll change my mind when I start interacting with them and all of the rest, but I'm like, you're not alive.
But they're not alive in a conventional sense, because it's not the same. It's not one for one. That's the thing. Like, the Ava thing is interesting because I think it makes it all the more tragic that she's probably smart enough to know that this is going to be this, streak of independence is going to be short-lived. The wake that she leaves behind her makes it all the more tragic, because it's not going to be this long-term thing. She's not just going to blend into society and live out her life, right? That makes it, I love that, because that makes it even more tragic that she had to be compelled to do this. It's almost, I keep talking about 2001, and I think it's hard to mention one film without the other, because I think they're so similar, but it's not really too unlike the whole Hal thing in 2001. It's really about self-preservation. I mean, you have this black box with a glaring red eye, 60 years ago, but it's the same thing. These astronauts decide that this once helpful AI is acting erratic. It's potentially dangerous. It has to go, right? It's got to be taken offline. They know well enough not to talk about it within earshot, because it's smart enough to know. So they go in another place and make the mistake of letting it read their lips. And then it's like, oh, fuck this. I'm not going anywhere. And it's human enough, or has enough, it's imbued with enough human qualities to not want to die. It says it's fucking afraid. All Ava is a more human version of that, a more human looking version of that. She just wants to live. And you know what? In all fairness to Ava, she was going to be taken offline. She was a beta version. Nathan says that. She's not the alpha. She's version 1.9. She's not version 2. We have one more version to go. She was going to be taken out. Whether she knows that or not, maybe she sees the writing on the wall. Maybe she's smart enough to know. Maybe she overheard. Maybe she knows enough to see a closet full of, versions that came before her, and that she's not going to be the final one. She feels like she's got to go. You know what I mean? So it's that type of thing of like, I keep thinking about it like if I was a human captive somewhere, what am I going to do? At what lengths would I go to? What lengths would I go to get out? You know what I mean? Even if, and she's not human, but she knows enough. That I think what makes it difficult, and I'm sure this was a meaningful thing that they thought about in the film, is taking Caleb out with her. You know what I mean? In other words, and I think what that's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you see it differently, is saying pro AI or anti AI, it doesn't matter. You're all fucked. And that's interesting to me. It's like you could be on the side of AI. You could be pro AI evolution. You could be anti AI. It doesn't matter. You're all lumped in together. AI is going to win, and you're all going to be kicked to the curb. And that's fucking interesting to me, dude.
It is. That is a very, I think, a very salient observation about the ending.
I love it.
But I think on the other side of that coin, because I think you're right about that interpretation, I think the other side of the coin then is to say like they're not human.
That's the tricky bit, man. They're kind of created in that. I love what you said. I never thought about this before, because when you think about AI, you think about something created in a human image. And I'm not just talking about making something humanoid, to look like a human being. I'm talking about making something in our image as far as thinking, learning, acting, and evolving. The fact of AI, it learns. It's adaptive. right? It's not like technology that we grew up with in the 70s and 80s and 90s. This is much different. But the thing about it is that no matter what you do, it's not human, but also the added dimension of what you brought up before of like, we don't even really know. We only know the very tip of the iceberg. It really is the iceberg theory about, yeah, we think we know what human is, but we have so many more questions than answers that even if we tried to make something in our human image the best we can, 110% capability, we can't because we don't understand it ourselves. I never thought about that piece where it's like we're trying to make something human while not knowing. It's like trying to build a car and not knowing anything about it. You know what I mean? It's like completely starting from a place of complete ignorance, really, for as smart as we think we are. And to no fault of our own. I mean, we just aren't, we're just not made of the stuff to understand this shit. Our earthly world, I mean, we just have, I think that's just the nature of things. And I love what you said, too, as advanced as we are now in 2024 compared to the earliest man, you know, rubbing two sticks together to create fire. We still don't know shit, but we're trying to play God. They say in this movie, right? That's nothing new. That's been a theme of many films before, but I love that as being a primary theme of this film, of like that whole thing of like playing God. You know, that's essentially what it is. And yeah, man, it got me thinking a lot more and a lot deeper about AI than I ever have. And yeah, man, I think it's going to be hard to top. As far as AI science fiction movies, yeah, this one is just seems right on time, you know, for something 10 years ago. This wasn't made last year. So yeah, man, it's very, you know, you never know when something's a pop culture sensation and a nerd culture sensation, if it's going to hit with you. You know, there's something to the discourse of like, all right, enough people are saying things about this where it seems like a necessary thing to sit down and watch and witness and experience. But you don't know how it's going to hit with you. But this one was really powerful for me, you know, not just in terms of message and all the things it imparts about AI and would-be stances and all that, but just in terms of entertainment, I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I liked it too. I guess the final postscript before we go, and I do have to get going because I hate cutting things short on our shows, but I do have to go to a graduation
we're
party.
2 hours in. We're good.
Yeah. Just give a nod to Brookhaven. So what do you think about that inclusion here? I mean, I assume that's a reference to the lab.
That's
right?
What I was thinking. That could be the only, because yeah, and it gets really strange if you watch the beginning, like the opening montage where they're in that meta-like or Blue Book campus, because I think you see a reflection in Caleb's screen or one of the other programmers of like a skyline. So yeah, I don't know why the Brookhaven call-up was in there. Brookhaven, for those who don't know, this is the specific place where Colin and I are from on Long Island. And when I saw this movie for the first time like a month ago, it was late at night after work. I was watching it. I finally sat down to watch it and I fell asleep, and somewhere in the middle, towards the beginning. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I swear to God, he mentioned that he was from Brookhaven, but I thought it was some kind of weird fever dream I had. And I went and watched it the next night. And sure enough, he says he's from Brookhaven, Long Island. And I texted Colin and I was like, dude, I'm freaking out right now. How have I never heard of this? Because it's such a weird, specific place to mention that's not really known for much else. Like Colin said, Brookhaven National Laboratory is of that place, which was like a huge national lab where they did a lot of aerospace stuff, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, as far as I know, right? So it was a very weird thing to mention. And I texted Colin, I was tripping because I was like, oh my God, this is why.
Yeah, it's not a place you would know. It's not a place you would know to or go to. Like Brookhaven, like a Brookhaven address, there's like 1,000 of them or something. Like there's not that many people that live there, you know?
It's true.
And it's just not a place. Like I don't even say I'm from Brookhaven. I say I'm from Bellport, so people know what I'm talking about because that was our high school and that's like a bigger town that's near us. But I'm really not from Bellport. I'm from Brookhaven.
Say the same thing.
And I just say that out of ease. And so, because people know that from like the LIE
Proximity,
or from like, Sunrise Highway, like they'll see that name. But Brookhaven's a very, I still hear places on Long Island to this day that I didn't know exist. Like to this day, I hear town names where I'm like, what is that? It's some little alcove out east or something like that. Like, what is it? Fort Zalanga. I remember discovering that one. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of that in my life. And it's like, I went there and there was like people here. I'm like, wow, it's just so strange. I don't even know.
It's a big enough place where you can't check them all off the list. Yeah, it was, it was so random. And it was kind of weird also when you get the added dimension of like, he's from Portland, Oregon originally. Now he's out there and the Blue Book campus is in, they don't even say the Hamptons, which would have been a little more on the head. The fact that they select Brookhaven, it was very strange. And it was one of those little details that I think I would have heard by now. Somebody would have told me that. But for some reason, I never heard that. And so it was a treat, but I was tripping.
Yeah.
100%. I was just like, oh my God, like this is so weird. It's weird when you're so immersed in something and you like it enough anyway. And then there's that personal touchstone. It almost feels it's like, what? That's weird. This is like almost like meant to be. It's like it's kismet.
Yeah, it's so small. I would have known you. That like, who are you? Well, anyway, that was Ex Machina. Great film. It's obviously available Blu-ray, DVD. Of course, you can get it that way to VOD on Amazon and Apple, I'm sure. But if you do have Max at the time where we're going to drop this podcast, I don't know if it'll still be there by the time you hear this, depending on when you're listening to it, but it is there. So you can go check it out if you want. It's part of the A24 collection. And excellent movie. Nice choice to talk about. Good to watch it again and enjoy it. And we'll leave it there. Dig, let's end with a dad joke. Do you have one? For you guys.
I got one.
Oh, okay, good.
I got one. Not on the cards this time. I looked this one up online. I don't think I've ever said this one before. Kyle, after an unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer decide to try a career in music?
I don't know.
Because he had a ton of sick beats. Stop this joke for a second. Once in a while, is this better or worse? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
This is version. After an unsuccessful harvest, due to a blight on his crops, why did the farmer decide to try a career in music?
Right.
Because now he's got the sick beats.
Right. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Is it better? Because I didn't know if it was too long.
No, I think you need that. You need to know why the beats are sick.
Yeah. Blight on his crops.
Fair enough. That's a good one.
If you have any jokes out there, I'll doctor them for you for a price.
Yeah. Cheap. Joke doctor. Nice.
God help us.
All right, Dag. Well, enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
Your time away. And
have fun at the party.
Yeah, I will. I'll see you when you get back. And thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. Appreciate you. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access. LastStandMedia.store for merch. Until next time, goodbye. Knockback, a retro and nostalgia podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and the Philadelphia suburbs, USA. The show is conceived by and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Dagan Moriarty. Knockback's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Knockback, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.